Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists and people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in the business. My name is Marco Sawis, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's been following me along on this journey. I've missed you guys for a while. I've been a little bit busy, but I'm back. And who better to have on my return episode than someone who's been here before, one of my favorite guests. It was exactly 1 year ago when we had him on the show. His name is Nathan Harding. He's an actor, writer, filmmaker, painter. He does everything. And I'm so excited to have him here. If you want to find out his full story, we talked about NFTs, his spirituality, go to season 3. Episode 4 of OneMicNite podcast, and you will hear the entire story. So please welcome Nathan back. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I didn't realize it's been 1 year.
It's been a year. Wow.
Time goes so quickly.
It really goes by fast, right? So I have to do it to you like I start all the other episodes, and you can be brief about it, but who is Nathan M. Harding? Who is Nathan M. Harding from 1 year ago to today?
Someone who believes in himself a lot more.
Yeah.
That's what I've been working on, is having faith and belief in my own power more so than a year ago. I'd say that's where my headspace has been recently.
How did that come about? What was the spark that ignited that?
Well, I think as an artist, actor, artist, anything in the creative field, we can get lost or heavily influenced by external things that are happening to us. It could be the audition that you've auditioned 10 times for the same casting office, and you're up for this one role that you would love to get, and you don't get it, or you don't hear anything, and then they bring you in again a month later, and you're just like, what gives? So I think a lot of times as creatives or artists or creators, however we want to identify, that it's easy to get lost in what the market is telling us or what we're seeing. And in a way, we're giving our power and our faith away to something else that we really can't control. There's so many moving factors that we don't know. So I think at the end of the day, you have to go back to yourself and believe in who you are and what you're doing, and believe that eventually things will change. You could be literally 2 auditions away from that one opportunity that's going to take you to this next place. But even then, even if you get that great opportunity, what's next? So you still have to come back to yourself. It's really just you and your faith to keep you going. And I've also learned that no one really cares. I mean, as exciting as this stuff is,
right? Yeah,
no one really cares. It's you.
It's you. In what sense do you mean no one really cares?
I think a lot of people. And I've heard this before, and I as I've gotten older, it makes more sense. So in our network, in our families, there's a lot of people who don't relate to the process or the journey that we're on. They can relate to, at the end point, maybe when there's some success. It could either be a TV show, or maybe there's another actor that they really love and you happen to be able to play opposite of them. They can relate to that.
Right.
But the audition, the failure, the rejection, all the other stuff that comes with it, or roles that you're really excited about, but they're not interested in that.
Right.
There's no connection. They don't really care at the end
Right.
of the day.
Two things I have to say for that. And one is the destination is the journey.
Yeah.
Right. So our journey is the destination. We're constantly looking, and there really is no end. Part of our destination is the journey that we're taking, and we're learning, and we're looking, and we're reproducing. We're creating. We're doing all these things. That's our destination. The whole journey. Right.
Yeah.
So the other thing is too, I think we as just humans, not only creatives, but we feel a need to be validated by things we do. And when we get to a point where we understand that we are, as an artist, we put things out that we feel good about, we don't necessarily always have to have validation. It's us putting our art out in the world. We want
Yeah.
validation, but it's us putting a baby out in the world and we're helping it survive. We are proud of it. So hopefully somebody will like it, and maybe that'll, we'll produce something else and they'll like that. And then, if you're looking for success, then it'll come. But I think that one thing that my acting teacher told me the first day of class, she said, if you guys are looking to be famous, very few of you are going to do that in this class. If you're
Yeah.
looking to be a working actor, you can all do that and be proud of your work.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, I think it comes back to, yes, we got to look at, well, like, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing it?
Why are we in
Yeah.
this? Because the return, may not show up for years.
Right.
But I think for me, it's a commitment to a craft that continues to fulfill me. It continues to expand me. I'm able to grow within it. I'm able to do it until the day I die. I'm never going to get tired of it. I'm never going to get bored of it. It always stimulates me. I'm always learning something. I'm always able to meet fascinating people. It's
Yes.
just endless. So
Right.
there's so many pieces there. It's like, a flow of energy, or, a liquid that you're drinking that just keeps coming. And if you're able to be a part of that, for me, it's just magical. And you're and it's very precious in a way, and very unique, because it's not like everyone, in the world is able to have the luxury to go and explore this.
Absolutely. Now you've recently gone back into the acting world. I think you took a little break for a while, maybe, or I know you were doing some NFTs and painting, visual. Did you take a little break from the acting scene for a while?
No,
No, you
I
were still in.
was still auditioning during COVID, and painting. So I've been doing both. The one thing that I have taken a break from is writing,
Mm,
which I do want to get back to. And writing is what got me into all of this. So it was being able to see characters and being able to write about characters and play characters. That's what drew me into this. And I've written a bunch of short stuff. And then I was in film school, so wrote short films. And then I lived in Bali and I was writing a novel, and I got a draft done of it. And then in New York, I've tried to do some writing partnerships, but they really didn't go in the direction that I wanted to. So now I'm kind of coming back and just reassessing and refocusing on doing writing. But acting, no, I have a manager, I have agents. So I've always, whatever comes in, and then my self submissions, and then projects through my network. So I haven't stopped, but it does feel now that the flow of things, it's starting to feel similar to how it was pre-COVID, because I would say the first quarter of 2020 up until like this year, uh, it was a it wasn't normal.
yeah.
It wasn't the same flow or cycle. And then, there's the potential of the writers' strike, which I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll know in May, but it's just starting to feel normal again, I would say.
You're talking about the flow of everything coming together, like submissions, people seeing you for castings, films being
Yeah.
produced, things like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you do any stage work at all?
Yes, I have done, uh let's see, off Broadway. I did a lot of that pre-COVID.
Mhm.
And then I was in an improv sketch group called the Nat Turner Review, and I was with them for about 3 years. But everything in terms of live
The Nat
performances,
Turner Review. Who was in charge of that?
Rich Jackson.
Rich Jackson.
You know Rich
I
Jackson?
do know Rich Jackson. I
Oh,
started out doing that, and then I had a schedule conflict, so I stopped. This was years ago. He's been around for a while, a long time. He's
yes.
great. They're great.
He's, I mean, I'm getting emotional just thinking of teachers, someone who is just so generous with their time and their energy and their resources and their belief. I mean, Rich is one of them.
I have
It's
to
like,
tell you,
yeah,
since you say that, that is, I don't have very many regrets, but one regret I have is not being able to continue on with those guys. He was so generous in the short amount of time that I knew him and the rehearsals and everything. And I felt like I learned so much as an actor,
yeah.
as an improv. It was really something.
And he invests in you. I mean,
It-
he's looking at, I mean, there's 3 levels to, his training or working with the group, and it doesn't happen quick. Like, I mean, I hit the top level, but it took me a couple of years,
yeah.
and people come and go for various reasons. And he really has a commitment to improv, and he's also very aware of what's going on socially too, and
Mhm.
he's able to incorporate that into uh the performances, and yeah, so I miss them. But anyway, to answer your question, I would say that everything before 2020, yes, live performances, all of that, and then 2020 up until now, it came to a halt. But I am getting back to theater and reading and putting my mindset there. I just met with another stage actor friend, and we were just talking about theater because I'm also equity. So there are more plays that are coming out because the stuff that I like to do is straight play, so off
Mhm.
Broadway, off Broadway. I am trained in singing and in voice, but Broadway, I mean, maybe if there's a straight play. I haven't trained in dance. So it's really the straight plays. And also, I've been a copy editor for a website called Off Online, and
Mhm.
they do, dealing with allergies, they do reviews of off Broadway performances. So that's where my mind is at. So I would like to get back into
I love that.
theater.
How important is reading for you to staying abreast on the plays? How important is that?
I would say, this is just my opinion.
Mhm.
So generally I get auditions for TV or film or commercials or print. And print's not, I mean, that's its own thing, but uh commercial copy or text is its own thing. And then film and TV, like each of them are different. But what I find with a play is that it's like you're able to have the conversations with someone that aren't so edited.
Yeah, yeah.
It's much richer. There's more uh, depth at times. It's kind of like the difference between reading, for me, reading like a novel and then seeing the adaptation of that novel for a movie. There's just it's different. So I think each medium offers something. I feel that TV is very structured
Mhm.
and in a way that's familiar, and I feel comfortable with that because you can see the structure, and film is like that too, but a little bit lengthier. And then a play just seems like it has a lot more freedom, in my opinion, you know.
Hmm. Good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you've worked on sort of both sides of the avenue. You've been an agent, right? I think you were an
I was
agent
an
for a while.
agent trainee. Yeah, I was
Agent
training
trainee.
and climbing the corporate ladder at William Morris
Mhm.
before they merged with Endeavor. And before I was at William Morris, I was interning at Endeavor. So it's interesting how things play out. Yeah.
Were there any tips that you learned that you can sort of relate to today to sort of help yourself or help other actors that you could tell us? What are people looking for? What are the agents looking for in general? I know it's probably been a while, but I know each case is
So,
different, but yeah.
yeah. So I would say at that level, and I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to, but one of the things that one of the takeaways I could say is that you have to trust your agent. There has to be some level of trust and communication. And a lot of times that was questionable, or that was something that people were dealing with. And then the other thing you would see is people would jump from agency to agency. And maybe if they would have just stayed with that original agent who believed in them,
Mhm.
maybe their career would have gone somewhere else than just jumping to what is popular at the time. So I'd say, everyone talks about relationships in Hollywood, or this, I mean, it's not Hollywood anymore. I mean, it's New York, it's Atlanta, it's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
Relationships are really important, but I mean, we throw that word around like, oh yeah, I'm best friends with blah blah blah. But I would say that it's relationship, meaning that you're able to work with someone, communicate with them, trust them, and you're open to being able to hear other opinions, or other ideas that you may not even be familiar with, and being able to go with that. So trust was really important. um, I would say that the other thing I noticed was for actors at that level, at some point, a lot of times it wasn't about money. It was about, who am I working with? So if there was a director or another
Mm.
actor or even a screenwriter, and they really wanted to do that project based off of, whatever the reasoning is, the quality, the art, that was a driving force. So sometimes people didn't want to just be in, the next blockbuster, but they wanted to be in a different type of film that may show, the audience that they can do something different than what they have been doing. So I noticed that as well. So it wasn't always about money. It was other factors involved, relationships, um, and then professionalism too.
Yeah, I was going to say it
And
probably goes back to what we were talking about earlier, being generous. Maybe you want to work with a group of people or a director who's generous and allows you some creativity. The project's good, but maybe the director or writer allows you more creativity in what you're doing in your space.
mhm.
So yeah, maybe that's
And maybe
interesting.
the budget is, like everything everywhere all at once. Like they didn't have a big budget.
Hmm.
So, but for different reasons, people worked on that project. The story may have called them, or maybe it was, who they're able to work with. So I think the other thing about agencies is that it's very political at that level. And I think as artists or actors, we we can sometimes get caught up in the branding of things. If it's hit TV show, number one agency, all these things. But what can happen is you can be with your agent at this agency, and that agent can decide to leave for whatever reason. And it could be
Mm.
internal politics, it could be there's a new department head, or there's a merger like ICM and CAA, and your agent may then literally overnight, you know uh wrap up shop and set up a new shop down the street, and they may want to be able to bring you over, and maybe they're not going to be an agent anymore, maybe they're going to be a manager now. So those things also play a role. So I think it's important not to limit yourself as well. I would see some actors where they would be repped at, maybe at CAA for film, and then it's UTA for writing if they're also a writer. And then maybe they do voiceover at Gersh. It's kind of spread about. So I think that's important too. But then I've also seen other actors who maybe aren't at the CAA WME level. Maybe they're at a smaller agency and they've been with their agent for their whole career. So that's what I've seen.
Interesting. Did you ever face, when you were trying to get your agent, did you ever face a hard time based on, color or being ethnic or any of those situations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I always run into, and I've always had this ever since. So I was doing an internship at, I'm not going to say who, it was a production company at Paramount. And I remember the person, bless her heart, she was also mixed, but I was in film school and I was there, and one of the first questions she asked me, she's like, "What are you?" Because she couldn't quite
Uh-huh.
figure it out. But I've been asked that question my whole life, even outside of acting. I've always been asked, "What are you?" I can't quite pinpoint what you are because I'm mixed. I'm Mexican, Japanese, Irish, English, Austrian, German, and Native American. So what I'm what I found with acting teachers, um, agents, managers, it's always, you got a great look. You got a great look.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what that means to them. I'm like, okay, great look. What does that mean exactly? Does it mean that I look ethnically ambiguous? Is it that I look Asian? But I've talked to other actors who are in a similar boat as mine, and one of the things that they've ran into is they'll be up for roles and it'll end up going to someone who appears more traditionally white or more traditionally Asian, whatever that is. So I think for the multiracial look, I think we are heading there more and more. I have a friend who is a on-air news reporter, and she deals with a lot of social issues and stuff like this. And she's Filipino, and I talked to her about this stuff. And her opinion, which is interesting, is she says, "Well, there's a lot of actors like you who can pass as white enough, but they don't really know, the full mix."
Right.
So that's what I find. I do find that there's always a curiosity with my look in terms of representation and casting, and they want to see me. And what I also find a lot of times is with casting, it's let's see them for one role, and then it will be great. Okay, well then let's just see them for something else. So it's a lot of that. So maybe it's trying to find the right you know place for me.
Right.
It's a mystery
It
for me.
is a mystery, and it's interesting you say that. Do you feel like that it's eased up over the last few years? Do you feel like it's not as hard as it was before because now we're, people of color are moving more towards the forefront, and given more of an opportunity. They're increasing the inclusivity, the diversity, things like that. Look at what happened at the Oscars this year. Great,
Yeah,
great for Asians.
I think so. So I see it from that perspective, the optics, the politics, and all of that. But I also look at it from a business standpoint in terms of what content are consumers consuming. And right now it's streaming services, and within, if you have all these streamers that are popping up, and it's global, so it's not just this one domestic market, but it's spread out, so something can be released in multiple markets. So what I think, this is my opinion, what I think is happening is that at some point, all of these streamers, you're going to have more and more unique or niche content that speaks to people because it's very fragmented. So I think in that sense, they're always looking for something new and trying something out. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping that maybe this type of look, ethnically ambiguous or however we want to, whatever we want to call it, that they're able to bring that in more. I see it within specific genres like sci-fi,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
Marvel,
Hmm.
the MCU. There's certain places where it's more common. I think it's more common in New York to be able to do that because it's a part of the culture. Everything is such a melting pot here. But to do a TV show that takes place in Iowa, I don't know. I mean, maybe, my look might work within that story. So I think it's happening there, but I still think in terms of how I see it, it's still focused on the mono, black, white, that, or they might go into biracial.
Hmm.
And even that's still kind of a newer thing, even though they've been doing it for a while. It might be, an Asian dad and a black wife, and they have a biracial child, and that is, I don't know, modern for people. But to be able to have a total mix, I honestly haven't seen it that much. Maybe I'm missing it, but I haven't seen something where it's totally multi, uh, you know, more than three and mixed.
Right. I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think somewhere like New York, where you have a diverse population, it's more common
Hmm.
because, it's true to life here. It's the demographics here. Even though LA is like that, or, other large cities may be like that, you tend to have in New York, black friends, white friends, Latino, Asian, everybody in one group who, are associated with each other. So yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. I would have to say also my problem has been, and this is just my personal story, it's always been for me whether it was going to be the dark skinned black guy or the light skinned black guy.
Oh,
All the way through history, it's been, I could go in with the same guy reading the same thing, and it would come down to two people, me or him. And then they would go with the dark skinned guy with the light skinned wife.
that's
Isn't
interesting.
that interesting? There's one woman, her name is Patty McCree. She was all through Chicago when I was doing commercials and print. For some reason, we would end up together in almost every shoot. So she's become my TV wife, is what I call her. Light skinned black woman. Yeah. Is that interesting?
And it's interesting because I was listening to Viola Davis talking about a her movie, and she was saying that yes, you can make a movie like this for uh, you can make a movie and it can be for Black women, the Black women viewership, uh, but you have to also make the movie for the white male viewership as well, because that's also who's paying
Yeah.
the money to come and see your movie. So I think a lot of times production companies, marketing, everything, they're trying to figure out how do we tell stories that relate to that specific demographic. And I mean, I can relate to it being mixed and also being raised basically like middle class, Southern California, predominantly white. That was it, with the influence of these other cultures. But I think if you want to make something that speaks to your own community, I mean, you can do that, but you also have to think, how is that going to land for someone who's not within your
Yes.
community? and how are they going to relate to it? Because they
Exactly.
also are going to be paying money to see you.
Or not paying money to see it because they won't see it. Right. So that, yeah,
Exactly.
therein lies the problem. And I think that's been the problem with the Oscars and Hollywood and all these places that produce movies, because you are making movies for a certain type of people. And so now you have to find a universal story, that appeals to everyone. And you also have to cast it accordingly because people
Mhm.
want representation, and so they have to figure out how the pieces all fit together like a puzzle. Does this person look right with this person? Would they really be friends? How does she dress? How would she look? Can she be, herself? Can she be, or does she have to fit a certain mold? Or, yeah, so it's difficult. So I think also that's where you find, different cultures making their own movies and having their own awards. This is where the NAACP Image Awards come from,
Mhm.
because people of color, Black people, are not being celebrated for their achievements because their stories are different.
Mhm.
It appeals to them in a different way.
But I gotta ask you this: what is it that? Why are we like this? This is what I don't get. And then I start thinking: is it this tribalism mentality? Like, why? Like, I watched
I
Moonlight, and
uh,
I mean, yeah, I could relate, but I couldn't relate at times.
yeah,
But I was still fascinated with it. There's other
there are other
projects that
factors. I think it, I mean, it goes back to, and we use this all the time, but it goes back to the history of this country. It goes back to the way people are brought up and the way people live. My experiences are different from your experiences. If you grow up in a Black community and your stories, you have similar stories. I personally went to boarding school, so my story is different from everybody else's story. So I see things in a different way. You know, maybe I didn't have the full Black experience or Latino
mm,
experience, or what it may be. So it's different. It's different.
yeah.
It's different. And that's where I think also, when you diversify the board of people, back, going back to these award shows with different people, then you get input. You get input. People talk about it. You sparks conversation. People can then understand what these stories are that are being told are about, what they really mean on a cultural level, on a spiritual level.
Hmm.
You know, we had the first winner this year, the Oscars, Indian, for what was it, for music, for composition. This is integrating different ethnicities and cultures into our lives, which should have been done a long time ago.
Hmm.
We need to hear these stories. We need to be turned on to Bollywood. We need to be turned on to the stories. It's not just Bollywood. They have plenty of other stories to tell.
Hmm.
And we need to be exposed to that. And I think that's where diversity and inclusion and telling stories, it all comes into to play.
Hmm.
We have to. It's important. We're all artists. We're all actors. We're all here to tell our stories. We need to
Hmm.
learn. It's a learning tool for everyone in different respects.
Oh yeah. And when you're able to, because I've lived in India, Nepal, Bali, Japan, and I've traveled through Asia and Europe. And when you're able to experience other cultures, and I mean, it doesn't have to be film or TV, but even if you just see a play or something, or even if it's just, someone telling a story, it, you're able to, for me, so I lived in India where the Buddha became enlightened. And one of the things that is very common in that area is oral storytelling. Everything is, spoken. And I think when you're able to step outside of what you think and you're able to hear other things, if it influences your life and your way of thinking, and you grow. And I think with the internet and everything, we're able to be connected. But at the same time, I see that with the algorithm, it sets it up for you to really just stay within that tribal thinking, because it just wants to
Yes.
send you more and more of what you're interested in. So I'm just always fascinated with how are we able to, I mean, there's a divide, but how are you able to bring everything in together so there is that influence that you were just talking about? And yes, the Oscars, it's a great platform, and the ratings are going up. So you're able to get that attention for that 1 week or whatever on social
Mhm.
media. But beyond that, how do you really bring people
It's
together and share those experiences and those stories so that we grow and so that we don't
you,
just stay.
I think you just said it. It's about having an openness and willingness to learn about other culture and other people. It's about being open because we have the same basic needs. We all have the same
Mhm.
needs. We need human connection, you know? So if we're open to other cultures and people, then we don't have that much judgment placed on other people.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like a simple answer, but how do we do that? I look at someone without judgment. I'm reading a book right now, and this woman will be on the podcast. Her name is Audrey Lewis. She's a journalist. Her book talks about her being a runaway, American runaway to Paris. She left the United States during the era of Trump as a black woman to get away from all the things that were going on here in the vein of Josephine Baker, James Baldwin, all these black
Mhm.
American artists who fled to be free and to be open and to be accepted. She said, what a feeling it was for her to walk down the breezeway, the hallway, and there was a white woman in front of her. And the white woman wasn't worried about a black woman stealing her purse or, what a freeing experience that is. So if we live our lives in that vein, how beautiful would that be?
Mhm.
Just accepting people and acknowledging people for who they are and being open.
It's almost like we at some point we lose that childlike curiosity. Children are
Right.
naturally curious, and at some age it starts to cut off,
Right.
and we get, I don't know, programmed or whatever it is. We get stuck in this way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's shift the conversation a little bit to that was pretty heavy. Um, how are the NFTs doing? How's the NFT world? And
Yeah. So I actually had someone contact me on Instagram that they're interested in buying one of my NFTs, but they want it on OpenSea, and I don't have anything on OpenSea. I just have it on Tezos, and I have not put a lot of energy into the NFT world right now because I mean crypto is tanked,
right,
unfortunately. And I think the thing with NFTs is that if it's a bear market, then great. There's momentum. If it's bull, then it's going up and down all the time. And I
very
think,
volatile. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so I think you have to be able to ride, where things are at the time. But what I have been focused in terms of art is I'm going to do a group show with two other artists. And so we're all doing abstracts. It's going to be 9 pieces. So I'll have three. And then the two other artists, they'll have three each. And what we're going to do is do venues here in New York. So it might be 1 month at whatever venue that is, and then it'll switch over to another venue. And so we're putting together pieces right now, and then we'll solicit two different venues to put it on the walls, and then 10% should go to whoever has that venue if there's any sales. So that's in terms of art, that's where I'm at. And then also working on my website and using AI actually to help me with the copy, because right now the language abilities with AI is really great. So if you have an idea and you need to be able to, hash it out with AI, it gives you a ton of different ideas instead of having to, rely on your friends or pay someone to do it. So that's where I've been at with art.
And that's a beautiful thing. You're a multi-talented, multimedia phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want us to know? Anything else coming up, show wise or film wise or TV wise?
Yeah, I am going to be in a project. I think we're supposed to shoot next month, and it's going to be basically, I think, a short film that will then be a teaser for a feature film that a friend of mine is writing. So that's a project that I'll be working on next month. So I'll be getting ready for that. And then just auditioning. That's what I've been doing. And just also, I'd say my process, looking at my process for my auditions and going back through. And I don't know if you've ever studied with Amy Linden out of LA, but she's great. And her whole focus is on the audition and booking, but she also has a lot of great material for breaking down the script and script analysis. So going back to those things and then reincorporating them into my process, because I think as a actor, your your process is always evolving in terms of where you're
Yes.
at. So
Yes.
that's another thing. And I think reading material, reading plays, and being able to break it down or look for a monologue, all those things I think helps in building that process. So that's where I'd say I'm at right now with it all.
I love that. It's never ending and it's always evolving, the
Yeah,
process. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Well, Nathan Harding, tell everybody how we can get in touch with you and how we can keep up with you.
You can find me on Instagram at Nathan Harding Official. So it's just my name, Nathan Harding, and then the word official. Or you can also go to my website, which has all my art, but I will be incorporating the acting as well. And that's at nathan-harding.com. So nathan-harding.com. And you can sign up for my newsletter, and I'll be sending you things about art, acting, inspiration. So that's another project that I'm working on.
I love it. You are always working. That's what an artist does, a creative mind. Thank you so much for coming back. My first return guest to OneMicNite podcast, and what a guest to have. All the information for Nathan will be down in the notes below. Please make sure you go back and check out season 3, episode 4 of OneMicNite podcast, where you find out the full story and you can learn about NFTs, which are still there and definitely making a comeback on the crypto chain. So don't sleep on that one. This is OneMicNite podcast. You can find me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis. Find the show at OneMicNite, ONEMICNITE. Go to the .com. You can find all the links, and also make sure you check out my home decor store. It's called Azules. It's on Shopify. The link will be down below. Thank you for everybody who's been purchasing things and getting all the home decor items. That's right. This is OneMicNite.
Know.
You never know. I also want to give a big shout out to Nilson Nascimento in Brazil. You never know who's watching what you do. So Nilson Nascimento is an instructor. His class has been listening and watching the podcast, and I want to thank you guys. And I will be talking to you very soon, so thank you. This is OneMicNite podcast. I'm Marcos Luis. Thank you for joining me. See you later. Bye-bye.